Sometimes we do stupid shit. We know it's stupid, but we do it anyways. What's up with that? Why would anyone do the wrong thing if they know it's wrong? People have been trying to figure this out for a long time. One of the earliest was the Greek know-it-all Plato, who claimed that a perfect God had given mankind perfect rationality, but that some of the sneaky, lazy gods also gave man emotions. Those dreadful but necessary disturbances. Pleasure, first of all, evil's most powerful lure, then pains that make us run away from what is good. Besides these, boldness also, and fear, foolish counselors both. Then also the spirit of anger and expectation easily led astray. And so on and so forth. And just to make it extra clear how spiteful Plato was of these emotion things, he added, "A man who masters his emotions will be reborn into a celestial heaven of eternal happiness, while a man who is mastered by his passions, however, will be reincarnated as a woman." Ow! Hey, it's not my fault.
Why not?
Plato said it, not me. Anyways, Plato's contempt for emotions ruled Western philosophy for a few thousand years, until some other smartasses started coming up with some different ideas. One of them was Thomas Jefferson, who believed that moral emotions and moral reasoning were separate processes, and each process could make moral judgments on its own, and they sometimes fought it out for the right to do so. As he put it, "When nature assigned us the same habitation, she gave us over it a divided empire. To you she allotted the field of science, to me that of morals." But another wise guy, David Hume, saw it differently. He thought emotions were the boss. Reason is and ought only to be the slave of the passions, and can never pretend to any other office than to serve and obey them. Hume's argument was that all preferences and motives are emotional, that there's no such thing as a purely rational decision, because to decide, by its nature, is to have a preference, and preference is emotion. Plato, Jefferson, or Hume? Philosophers and douchebags argued about it for a long time, until 1975, when a non-philosopher and non-douchebag came up with a new idea. A biologist called Edward O. Wilson took a break from studying ants to suggest that philosophers were really just making clever justifications for moral intuitions that were best explained by evolution. Wilson thought that natural selection had shaped not only the thinking of ants and their behavior, but also human thinking and human behavior. Wilson predicted that the study of ethics would soon be taken out of the hands of philosophers and put into the biology department. Seemed like a reasonable and modern idea, but oh no, all shit broke loose. Didn't happen. No way. Instead, Wilson was demonized. He was called a fascist. He was called a racist. Some tried to prevent him from speaking at all. Protesters rushed the stage and chanted, "Racist Wilson, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide." Now, why did they call him a racist? Well, if the human mind was shaped by natural selection, and if different groups of people made different sorts of selections due to different environments, then, oh my God, not everyone would be the same. This was blasphemy in the newly established religion of equality and political correctness. And so, Wilson's idea was put on the back burner for a few decades, as researchers were wary of being either strung up by the mob or losing funding for wrongthink. But some people kept looking into it. There was a study of people with a kind of brain damage that shut down all of their emotions. These Spock-like people felt nothing. You could show them the most disturbing images, no reaction or feeling whatsoever. They had normal IQs, and they scored highly on tests of moral reasoning. Yet when it came to making decisions in their personal lives and at work, they made foolish decisions or no decisions at all. They alienated their families and their employers, and their lives fell apart. I wonder where I could find someone with this sort of brain damage.
What did you do?
Oh, me? Oh, I only make bad decisions. Don't worry about it. Go away. Anyways, these brain-damaged people seem to prove that Plato was wrong, that the emotions were not just foolish counselors, leading the rational soul astray, but that effective reasoning required the emotions. Even Jefferson's notion of the head and heart being equal partners didn't fit. For in purely rational decision-making, these patients did poorly. Without the heart, their heads couldn't even do head stuff. It appeared that Hume's idea was the right one. So, a wise guy named Scott Murphy decided to test the idea on non-brain damaged people in a series of wise guy experiments. First experiment, he offered subjects $2 if they would sign a piece of paper that said, "I hereby sell my soul after my death to Scott Murphy for the sum of $2. There was a line for a signature, and below the line was a note. This form is part of a psychology experiment. It is not a legal or binding contract in any way. Scott also told them that they could rip the paper up as soon as they signed it, and they'd still get the $2. Only 23% of subjects were willing to sign the paper. 77% said no. Even atheists said no. In another test, Scott asked people to take a sip of apple juice from a cup. Everyone did. Then he brought out a plastic box and said, "I have here in this container a sterilized cockroach. We bought some cockroaches from a laboratory supply company. The roaches are raised in a clean environment, but just to be certain, we sterilized the roaches again in an oven, so hot that no germs could survive. I'm going to dip this cockroach into the apple juice, like this. Now would you take a sip?" 70% said no. Scott asked them to explain their reasons, and he did his best to challenge them for both of these tests. Eventually, the best that people could come up with was, "I just don't want to do it, even though I can't give you a reason." Now, of course, not wanting to drink roach-tainted juice isn't a moral judgment. It's a personal preference. And saying, "because I don't want to," is a perfectly acceptable justification for a subjective preference. Yet moral judgments are not subjective statements. Moral judgments are claims that someone did something wrong. And so, Scott tested people on these as well with some provocative stories. Here's one. Julie and Mark, who are sister and brother, are traveling together in France. They're on summer vacation from college. One night, they're staying alone in a cabin near the beach. They decide it would be interesting and fun if they tried making love. At the very least, it would be a new experience for them. Julie was already taking birth control pills, but Mark uses a condom too, just to be safe. They enjoy it, but they decide not to do it again. They keep the night as a secret between them, which makes them feel even closer to each other. So, what do you think about this? Was it wrong for them to have sex? 80% said it was wrong. But when Scott asked the people to explain their judgment and challenge those explanations, he found the same pattern as the bug juice test. Here's one transcript. "So, what do you think about this? Was it wrong for Julie and Mark to have sex?" "Yeah, I think it was totally wrong. Because I'm pretty religious, and I just think incest is wrong anyway, but I don't know." "Well, what's wrong with incest, would you say?" The whole idea of, I've heard, I don't even know if this is true, but in the case, if the girl did get pregnant, the kids become deformed, most of the time in cases like that." "Yeah, but they used a condom and birth control pills." "Oh, yeah, you did say that." "So there's no way they're going to have a kid." "Well, I guess the safest sex is abstinence, but, I don't know. I just think that's wrong. I don't know. What did you ask me?" "Was it wrong for them to have sex?" "Yeah, I think it's wrong. And I'm trying to find out why. What do you think is wrong with it?" Let's see. Let me think about this. How old were they?" "They were college age, around 20. Oh, I don't know. It's just not something that you're brought up to do. It's just not, I wasn't. I assume most people aren't. I just think that you shouldn't. I guess my reason is, just that, you're not brought up to it. You don't see it. It's not, I don't think it's accepted. That's pretty much it." Well, you wouldn't say that anything you're not brought up to see is wrong, would you? For example, if you're not brought up to see women working outside the home, would you say that makes it wrong for women to work? Well, oh gosh, this is hard. I really, I mean, there's just no way I could change my mind, but I don't know how to show what I'm feeling, what I feel about it. It's crazy. This is how all the interviews went. Not exactly like that, but pretty close. And maybe it's not crazy, but it's certainly not rational. In this transcript and many others, it became obvious that people were making moral judgments immediately and emotionally. Just as with the bug juice, the decision came first, and the reasons, if any, came later, or not at all. So back to the original question. Why do we sometimes do stupid things even though we know they're stupid? Well, it's because reasoning is the servant of the passions. And when the servant fails to find good arguments, and sometimes even when it does, the master does not change its mind. Anyways, I hope you found this kind of stuff interesting. All the content was sourced from Jonathon Haidt's The Righteous Mind, which is a really great book. I advise checking it out if you find this sort of stuff interesting. And if you want to hear me talk about this sort of stuff and other kinds of stuff or whatever comes to mind in the future, it really helped me out if you go ahead and press the subscribe button. That's not the subscribe button. Well, anyways, come on, people. Help me out. I'm doing the best I can here. Peace out till next time.